Hey everyone, can you guys see me? There might be a little bit of delay. Always happens sometimes. Anyways, there's this. We're meeting up with Rob today, and he's going to talk about entrepreneurship and business, and just that. And then this is a combined effort between TeamAid and Williamsburg Academy to bring this awesome webinar series to you. Feel free to put questions on the sidebar this way, or maybe it's this way. I don't know if it reverses me. But you'll see a little chat bubble at the top, and then like a little bit lower, you'll see like this question one. Feel free to submit there, and we'll just go with it. Here is Rob.
Well, I appreciate that, Sterling and Mallory. It's nice to be together with you. I was telling Mallory that I'm pretty used to speaking to people into groups, but I'm not very used to doing it from behind my desk. So if I look a little uncomfortable, that's normal. As Sterling said, I've been asked to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and about leadership and putting those two together. My experience professionally is I am an entrepreneur. From a resume standpoint, I've started a variety of different types of companies. A lot of companies. I started out when I was right out of high school. I was working at McDonald's, great place to be. One of my very favorite jobs I ever had was actually at McDonald's. I'm not sure how proud I am of that, but it's true. After 4 years at McDonald's, I learned a lot, and I got out of high school and I got a job at a tuxedo shop. Great place to work, I guess, and I became a manager there. And while I was working there, I was remembering how terrible it was to do fundraising in high school. I don't know about your experience, but at that time we didn't have a lot of options. We could sell candy bars, so we sell $1 candy bar and make 50 cents, or we sold caramel popcorn, and all of those things were pretty boring and didn't make a lot of money for the school. So a friend of mine and I thought we should start our first company together, and we started a company called What's Up Arizona. And what What's Up Arizona was is we made discount cards. Now today that's pretty common, but at that point we were the first person to ever do it in Southern California or Arizona. There may have been someplace else, but we thought that we could produce a discount card, and that discount card the high schools could sell and the clubs could sell, and when they did that they could make a lot more money. Sell the card for $8, $10, and they could make half. That was our idea. So we, at 17, I thought it'd be a great idea to go to McDonald's Corporation and try to convince them that it was a good idea to support us. So we went to McDonald's and convinced them it was a good idea, and went to the bowling alleys and went to restaurants and so on. And that was the first company that we started. That process kind of got things kind of going for me. They were pretty exciting. So I'd say it was a limited success. We sold a lot of cards, a lot of schools made money, and it basically paid for me to be able to go to college. And when with that experience, it kind of got the bug in me that entrepreneurship is a lot of fun, and there's not a lot that I can't do or people can't do if they have opportunities. So there was a couple things I would emphasize there and then kind of move on to the next experience. One was I had a full-time job, and I kind of did this on my lunch hour. It was very successful for me, and I've done that a variety of times since then. At that point, I had a little debate with my parents. My parents thought I should go to college, and I thought I should keep working. To their credit, they succeeded in convincing me that going to college was worthwhile. So I went to BYU in Provo and had a great experience there. And that came the next business opportunity. Got a job there and decided that I like to rock climb. And if I like to rock climb, other people like to rock climb. So why shouldn't we rock climb? And they pay me to teach them to rock climb. And gentlemen who were in attendance, it was a great way to meet girls because we marketed ourselves to clubs and brought them over to the rocks and the cliffs right there at BYU, and we taught them how to rappel and to rock climb. It was a good experience. From there, graduated and been in a variety of things since then. Got involved in the golf business. The golf business is a great business to be in, I guess. I'm not much of a golfer. So from golfing, we went to commercial real estate and commercial landscaping. I've been in the pharmaceutical business with a prescription allergy medication. We have an office in Hawaii where we do group travel. We built the first zip line on Oahu. That was pretty fun. We've built office buildings. We've sold office buildings. We've done a variety of different things. But what we're here today is not necessarily to talk about my experience as an entrepreneur, but to try to advocate to you that entrepreneurship is a worthwhile thing, and that it means that you do things that a lot of people have never done before. So I'd ask you the question, but I'm not sure how this necessarily works, what you think entrepreneurship means. Most people, when I teach classes at BYU Hawaii, they say starting a company. Not a bad definition, but probably not as accurate as I'd like it to be. There's a definition from Howard Stevenson. He's a Harvard business professor, and he says entrepreneurship is the pursuit of an opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. Okay, so one more time, because we're doing this from a listening standpoint. Entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. Unfettered opportunities. You're not reliant on what you have. You're not reliant on what your parents have. You're not reliant on where you're from or what you have been taught to do. Entrepreneurship is seeing things a new way, in a different way. I like to think of it as big dreams. So I hope of the people who are attending today that you all have pretty big dreams and you want to do great things. And I think entrepreneurship is a great vehicle to get there. That's a whole lot more fun to call it that than to say it's a guy who starts a company. We do that too. So leadership through entrepreneurship, you need to look at it this way. Even the great ventures, the great businesses at one time were just a startup. They were just a venture, someone's good idea. Whether or not you're talking about big companies like Ford, okay, Henry Ford tried 6 times to start the Ford Motor Company before he succeeded. Intel, that tiny little company that's changed the world, started 14 different times to try to get funding. They were turned down 14 times to get funding. If you're going to become an entrepreneur and start a business, there are a lot of obstacles and a lot of things that you got to succeed with. 65% of the startup companies fail, but that also means that 35% succeed. Not all of them become Intel. Not all of them become Ford Motor Company. In fact, most of them don't. But Microsoft, Bill Gates, he did not start with a golden spoon in his hand. You understand Apple and the power of those companies. You understand companies like Motorola. You understand, here's one of my very favorites, Waste Management. One of my very favorite companies. They do trash. They do a lot of trash. One of the largest companies in the world. These all started from people like you and me having a good idea and then making it real. There are some key characteristics of entrepreneurship and entrepreneur leadership. These characteristics, in my opinion, are, first, you got to have a strong internal direction. You got to have vision. You got to have an idea of what you want to be. You also have to be able to tolerate ambiguity, meaning that if you want to have a very good job description or you want to have a very stable thing that you do every day, you probably want to skip entrepreneurship. You also have to willingly acknowledge that you're not the smartest guy there and be willing to hire people that are smarter than you. Now, this may sound obvious, but it's really not. It's difficult for most people to think about hiring people who are smarter than them. Additionally, who do you want to hang out with most of the time? People who are just like you. That's not a great formula for a successful company. You also have to have passion, not just for what you do, but for opportunities. There are very few companies that end up what the entrepreneur thought they were going to become in the beginning. Not the way it works. So you got to have a little bit of passion. And I don't think passion comes from genetics. I don't think it comes from your parents. I think it comes from what you nurture and what you think is going to be good. Then you got to have a sense of urgency. Here's a great one. When you're an entrepreneur, who gets after you when you're late to work? Nobody. Who says you have to go to work? Nobody. Who sets the performance goals for you? Pretty much nobody. So this sense of urgency is ways to create goals for yourself and ways for you to be focused on making things happen for yourself. I'd say it this way. If you don't set performance goals for yourself, no one else is going to want you to set them for them either. And the last one is optimism. I truly believe that the most optimistic people in the world are entrepreneurs, because you have to see a glass that is even just barely wet as half full. It's a way to look at things from a perspective that sees good things even when they may not be so good. So that strong internal direction, that vision. Some people talk about destiny. They talk about fate. That's kind of bogus. In entrepreneurship, you kind of make your own destiny. You decide what you can do, and you go about doing it. That will, I have a whole class on the will to succeed. Sometimes we talk about the success being dragging people to victory. They may not want to come, but your will drags them there, sometimes kicking and screaming. Then that ambiguity. Entrepreneurship is very much about chaos. It's about doing things differently. One day you may be a plumber. The next day you may be a computer programmer. The next day you might be the human resource director. The next day you might be the landscaper. You're going to do all of those things in a typical day. If you want something stable and easy, probably not your thing. Also, when people see chaos as fun, when they see it as dynamic and not as a burden, that's one of the keys to entrepreneurship. Let me talk a little about hiring people who are smarter than you. In our company, we hire generalists. I have a whole talk that we do. A couple years ago, I gave it at BYU, and it was a seminar called Musings of a Generalist. And this is the premise, that today, in a changing world where technology is changing and markets are changing and things are dynamic, it's no longer okay to just be good at one thing. What I believe is that being pretty good at a bunch of things makes you really good in the marketplace. It's a stronger talent to be adept at changing into a variety of things than being just a very good CPA or just a good programmer or just a good whatever. So to be an entrepreneur, you need to be willing to understand that you're good at some things and maybe okay at a lot of things, but there are people who are better than you are. What separates you from everyone else, I hope, is that will to go forward. Then we talk about passion. You know, there's a quote from Alexis de Tocqueville, and he says, "We succeed in enterprises which demand the positive qualities we possess, but we excel at those which make us use our defects." You got to figure out what you're good at, but you better figure out what you're bad at, and then overcome those things so you can be successful. I love the idea of passion. It's passion in going forward that helps you get over the downtimes. It's the desire to create something no one else is true. I like Dallin's quote. He says, "It's not true. There is no one better than me." All right, Dallin, I want to meet you. But besides that good thing, there are people who are better at other things than you are. So you don't inherit that passion. You work on it. You decide that what you're doing is interesting. Now, that doesn't mean the job is always interesting. I talked about waste management. It's one of my very favorite companies. I have a dream about being in the trash business. To me, it sounds like the coolest thing ever. I get to dig a hole. I get to sell all of the gravel out of that hole. Then I get to get paid to put stuff back in the hole and cover it up with dirt. It may be the ultimate job for me, okay? But there is nothing glorious or exciting about being in the trash business. But BMI and Waste Management are two of the largest companies in the entire world, and they do trash. So passion is not necessarily because you do something that's really cool, but passion is because you do something well. And when you do it well, there's excitement in doing that. And then we talked about optimism and urgency. These are great traits that make you successful at whatever you do. Now, what I hope you hear is these are not really specific traits just to entrepreneurs, but they're traits to success all over the place. There's a term. You guys are probably too young, but there was a toy called a Weeble Wobble. Okay, it was about this big. All right, and the marketing pitch was Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Okay, so I want you to think about a punching bag. As an entrepreneur, you're going to get hit all different directions. Okay, but you'll return back to vertical because you got good roots and a good sense of optimism and a lot of powerful ideas. So strong direction, able to manage chaos and ambiguity, passion for opportunity, willingness to acknowledge that everyone besides one of you can find someone smarter than them, and then this sense of urgency and optimism. There's a guy named John Bergstone. He's an entrepreneur. He sold his startup company for 1.1 billion. That's a B dollars. I would suggest that he did pretty well from entrepreneurship. Now he teaches entrepreneurship at Berkeley. And he said, every time you want to make an important decision, there are two possible courses of action. You can look at the array of choices that present themselves, pick the best option, and try to make it fit. Or you can do what the true entrepreneur does. Figure out the best conceivable option and then make it available. I would challenge all of you to look at things and decide that you're not limited based on what's available to you. Your limit is only what you can envision. And so if you can envision it, make it happen. One of the other tools, in addition to these things that you have to be able to do well, is communicate. I hope that you have opportunities to talk to other people, because no matter what you decide to do, you're going to have to sell it. Entrepreneurship is about selling your vision. Then it's about inviting people to work with you, not for you. Then you've got to inspire creative solutions and inspire people to do better. You've got to promote an atmosphere of opportunity where they look around and they find things that the company can do. If you can't talk and you can't communicate and you can't think about other people while you're talking to them, you will never be successful. I want you to think about the people who you don't like to talk to. I don't know who that is, and I'm not going to make any comments about who it possibly could be. But parents sometimes come to mind. But the point is, think about the people you don't like to talk to and see if they fall into any of these three categories. Do they say the same thing over and over and over again? Do they hurry through what they say so they can get on to something else, helping you to feel like what they're saying is not very important? Do they generalize things, talk about things at maybe the 35,000-foot level, then have expectations that are very specific, creating confusion? It doesn't really matter what you say. It matters a lot what is heard by the people you're talking to, and then what is learned. Each individual has kind of a preferred methodology for learning. I hope you've had some opportunities to talk about this in the past, but there are three dominant ways people learn. There are visual learners, there are auditory learners, and then there are kinesthetic learners. The purpose for understanding this is so that when you're talking to people, you're specifically focusing on how they're hearing you. Now, with that said, a webinar is not what I would say the most effective way to communicate with people that I can't see. Besides Sterling and Mallory, you guys look great. But not thrilled, but great. But the point is, you need to be talking to people so they understand what you say. The responsibility for communicating is not for the listener, it's for the presenter. So when you're talking to somebody who's a visual learner, you need to present things in a way that they can understand. They best learn through sight and by seeing things demonstrated. You know, they use graphs and diagrams and PowerPoint presentations. Dry erase boards, I love them. They're very effective for visual learners. You encourage them to take notes. You do videos. You do those kind of things. Visual learning is a lot what you do in school all the time. School is very much focused on visual learners, which is probably good because that's about 60% of all the people out there. Auditory learners are very different. They're sometimes hard to communicate with because it's a visual learner trying to talk to a auditory learner. They communicate more effectively over the phone. They're really good at taking oral direction. It's very effective to ask them to repeat things back. It's worthwhile for them to give oral reports versus written reports. And when you present things from an auditory standpoint. You could draw things on the board all day long, but if you don't present it vocally well enough, they won't get it. The last one is the kinesthetic learner. And these are kind of the doers in life, the people who don't sit down very well, the people who will do far better at a meeting by walking around. You need to have breaks in your meetings because they can't sit any longer, or keep a conversation brief so that they don't get bored, hopefully. You do role-playing, you do physical activities, those kind of things, because they associate learning with doing something. If you can change how you present information to people, you'll be far more effective. And you've got to remember, if they don't understand you, it doesn't matter how good your vision is. If they can't understand what you're saying or what you want to accomplish, it's not going to make much difference what you want to do. It's important that you carefully try to ascertain what your talents are and what the abilities of the people around you are. Not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur, but everyone can be a leader in the realm that they influence. I don't imagine that all the people who are here today are going to want to start a business. Probably. But I hope you all would, or think about it. But how you approach anything you do professionally, anything you do, even from a hobby standpoint, if you promote it with passion and you approach it trying to communicate your passion with other people, you'll be successful. So you got to decide what your talents are. Are you a strong manager? Are you a strong entrepreneur? Are you somewhere else? I don't know. But in my world, there are values for both. All right, it's about being successful at what you do and seeking to find ways to be successful around other people. Let me describe managers for a second. Sometimes the term manager gets kind of a bad rap. People think about it as, I'm just a manager. That's not true. Managers are incredibly valuable. They have a skill set that's different than even most entrepreneurs. In my company, I'm kind of the free radical. I'm the idea guy, all right? And I have a team that helps to keep things moving. So I describe managers as people who keep things on a steady course. They maintain a smooth operation. They seek to meter the highs and the lows of business. We're doing really, really great. Well, let's not get too excited too fast. We're doing really, really poorly. Let's not throw in the towel yet. They bring things towards the middle. On the other side, an entrepreneur leader, from my perspective, they're the ones that alter directions. They invite participation. They do things differently than we did them before. They overcome and implement shifts in staff and crew. Sometimes they have to retool everything, and that's not much fun. They change the nature of an operation. They do things differently. When I was describing the businesses that we've been in, nobody in the College of Business that I studied in would think that there's a lot of correlation between being a commercial landscape installer, a property manager, a pharmaceutical company, and running a zip line. Nobody would say, well, obviously, that's a skill set that everyone's got to have. But if you were to think about it from the standpoint of it's just running a business, it's running the same team doing different things, that's how we've been successful. We always look for new opportunities. In my household, there's a phrase that I use that my children, my wife think is a curse word. I say, I've got an idea, and they all get really petrified. Like this morning, I was pitching to them around the breakfast table a new idea for a self-serve gym membership, okay, where you could go in, you could find out if someone's using the Stairmaster you like, or you could check on your phone and using RFIDs to get in and to know who's there, what the consumption is, so you don't show up and have everything being too busy. Now, I'm going to tell you, it didn't go over very well with my family because I'd also pitched them on starting a laundromat. But the idea is looking for opportunities, looking to make things fun. Another thing about these behaviors of being a good manager or also being an entrepreneur is that you need to overcome things. Like you need to overcome bureaucracy. It's no fun, but you need to overcome it. You need to work around it. You need to be enthusiastic. You need to be quick at making decisions. There's a term that you should measure twice and cut once. That's a great term. But in the business world or in bureaucracies, it's measure 2, 3, 20, 30 times and never cut. So in our company, we have a saying on the wall of our conference room that we all need to be cutters. Measure once, measure twice, be careful, but you got to make a decision. The last thing you need to do is you got to decide why you want to do it. I would give you a challenge. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, right, I'm happy to help. I get ideas pitched to me from people every week, all right? We work with entrepreneurs in India, we work in Samoa, all right, and we work in, 2 countries in Africa, in the Congo. These are people who graduated from BYU Hawaii who want to start companies because they believe that their best bet going home to their country was to start a company because there were no other jobs available. So we help them. We've got a group in Mongolia that's trying to start a company to clean office buildings. They're doing travel in India. They're doing a dance studio in Tonga and an entrepreneurial college in the Congo. These are exciting things. But I ask the same question to every entrepreneur when they first start. Why do you want to do it? So I'd ask all of you, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? The answer I haven't seen scroll across here is because I want to be rich. All right, who's gonna put it up there first? I want to start the next Apple computers. I want to start the next waste management. But everyone decides that they want to be rich. The best way to be rich, in their opinion, is to be an entrepreneur. I think it's not very accurate, but that's the most common answer. So I'd ask you, like I do at BYU Hawaii, what does it mean to be rich? At BYU Hawaii, there are 73 countries represented there. I can tell you that what it means to be rich, I like Dallin who wants to change the world, what it means to be rich is different if you live in India or Micronesia than if you live in Austria or St. George. What it means to be rich matters a lot based on what your perspective is. Okay? How much money it would take for you to achieve that becomes a question you want to ask. So I would ask you all rhetorically, how much money per year would you need to make to be rich? Now everyone goes, $1 million a year, but that's just a generic number. Any thoughts of what it would take, what you think would take to be rich? All right? It's a very relative thing. As you think about it, let's put things into perspective. What is rich to you? Does rich mean I have a really big house? Exotic cars? A yacht? Come on! Who doesn't want a yacht? Okay, this extensive portfolio. All right, I like your answers. So what does it mean to be rich? This is a big deal. All right. So or maybe it doesn't affect what you have. Maybe rich to you is how you use your time. Does rich mean I have a lot of discretionary time? I can travel. I can pick up hobbies. I don't know. I'm not sure what hobby you have. Play more racquetball, whatever it is. Okay. Maybe rich to you isn't what you have or your time. Maybe rich to you is a feeling of security. If I brought in a certain amount of money, right, then maybe I wouldn't have to worry about bills. Maybe I'd have more peace in my life, more security. Okay. There are 3 different ways of thinking of rich. 1 with the stuff you have. Okay. 2 with your time, and 3 with the feeling of security. So now that you know what rich is, what are you willing to trade for it? This is what I mean. You only have a certain amount of years in your life, a certain amount of hours in the day. So what are you willing to trade to be rich? Now somebody said they want to make $700,000, and so we've been through a lot. Some people have loftier goals than others, but you're going to trade off hours and time. So let me ask you a couple of questions. These are just rhetorical. All right. What are you willing to trade for that nicer car? Are you willing to trade more time with your family? Are you willing to trade off never being home? What about missing soccer games or football games? What about any of those things? If you don't think there's a correlation between how much money you make and how much time you put in, you haven't been out there for very long. How about this? Are you willing to use all your time for work and maybe miss out on church activities? Okay. Are you willing to trade off being able to help somebody, looking around, being able to go to service projects? You're willing to trade off helping to lighten somebody else's load because you want a bigger house or a ski boat or a yacht. This thing all matters. I promise you that the best thing you can do is to think about what you want, okay, and what your needs are. We talk a lot of times about where is your heart. Okay, entrepreneurial success can be measured in how it helps you accomplish the desires of your heart versus the girth of your bank account. Most entrepreneurs that you know are people who do things like they're a tile installer, or they paint houses, or they sell life insurance, or they do other jobs that are not going to be the next Apple, and they're not going to be the next IBM, and they're not going to be any of those things. But they're going to accomplish their goals and help them to have some success and do things that are most valuable to them. The Dalai Lama, who I think is obviously pretty amazing, he said, this is a quote from him, it says, "Man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money, then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health, And then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he never is going to die, then dies, having never really lived. We talk a lot of times about entrepreneurship, about making a lot of money. I'm all for it. Have a great time. Make a lot of money. Benjamin Franklin said, "Money never made a man happy yet, nor will it. The more a man has, the more he wants. Instead of filling a vacuum, it makes one." I am not against making money. I think you ought to. But it's important that you keep track of what you're willing to trade off. I studied economics at the university. Opportunity cost is an important idea. It's not insignificant. Knowing what you give up, the value of the next thing you give up to get something else. What do you give up if you're working 16-hour days? Are you only going to do it for a certain amount of time? Are you going to do it forever? I'm not sure, but I do know that if you don't decide that, you can get caught by golden handcuffs. You can be making so much gold doing what you're doing that you can't get out of it. Today we've talked about a variety of things. This entrepreneurial mindset, the idea that you need to have a vision and strong direction. You got to have handle clutter and ambiguity and chaos. And you've got to be able to be willing to acknowledge there are smart people out there even smarter than you. And you got to have a sense of urgency and passion for opportunities and an optimism. All of these things are true. You've got to be able to communicate. You've got to know who you're talking to and realize that how you present information helps people to be more effective around you. You've got to be a good manager or entrepreneur looking for the best things around you in people and realize they're the best assets there are. And invite them to work with you, not work for you. I hope that these traits seem more universal than just for entrepreneurship. It's really about living good lives. You know, we talked about a lot of different things about what it means to be rich. I hope you move forward and you consider that you manage your needs and your wants, and then you use entrepreneurship as a tool to accomplish those things. It's a great thing to be involved with, and most importantly, it's a way for you to provide for your families, provide some level of security for yourself, and help other people. The thing that gives me the most joy in what I do is I'm able to provide jobs and employment to people. I never really thought that'd be a big deal for me, but at this point today in the companies that we run, it helps me to know that they're able to work in a good team. I hope it's a good team. They can feel like they're appreciated because I appreciate them, and that they can go home with some certainty to their families and they can enjoy good times too. So that's really for me what entrepreneurship is, but it's gonna change a lot for a lot of different people. I think the best thing now is that's my my time for presentation. Does anyone have any questions or any ideas they'd like me to answer or anything I can do? I'm watching this thing, the chat. By the way, you guys have very active fingers.
Hey, Rob, we have one question, I guess, and it's, I want to start an animation business when I'm older, small, roughly 15 people max. So how can I juggle between developing my art talent and prepare for the rough task of owning a small business? Thanks.
Well, my thought is this. I actually was just working with a graphic artist. He just moved in. He's subleasing some space for one of my offices in Utah. And what he did, and I'd recommend the same thing, is he was a good artist. He enjoyed drawing. He enjoyed the creative process. And so what he did is he created a website, a very simple one, that he would refer people to when they wanted something creatively approached. He worked for another company. He did this in the evenings on his lunch hour. And what happened was he built his portfolio to a point that he had more work than he could do on his lunch hour. Very successful that way. And today he's so busy that he's trying to find other artists to be part of his company. So now it's a company of about 4 or 5, but he does great projects. He makes T-shirts. He does designs for marketing campaigns. He does comic books. I never realized that you could do private done comic books, but it's pretty fun to do. And but start off small. Put out your stuff in a way. I mean, the web's so accessible today. You don't need to worry about search engine optimization or how to get people to find your site. Become your own best salesman, but put your stuff up there so people can see it. And then let them tell you what you should do to make it profitable.
Okay, we also have one from uh, I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna butcher it. How can I get my name out there? It seems like there's so many people you'll get buried underneath everyone else.
Well, you absolutely will. I mean, there was an old movie called Field of Dreams. They said, if you build it, they will come. That's a crock. If you put up a website today, no one will ever find you. No one will ever find you. Okay, there's so much clutter out there. But you've got to go back to the old way of doing things. You need to have a presence on the web, okay? But then every time you visit with people, tell them what you're passionate about. Every time you bring it up, every time you have a conversation, talk about what you were doing. I use an example all the time. When people come to the office in the morning on Monday or come to school, what'd you do on the weekend? Well, what do you choose to talk to them about? Do you tell them about the stuff that that was really fun? Do you tell them about the stuff that was really bad? That would probably be the edges of things you talk about. There was a whole bunch of stuff in the middle you don't talk about. You need to be focused on promoting yourself and what you love and that vision in everyone you talk to. You need to reconsider what you visit about. People will not become bored at you self-promoting if you're really talking about things you have vision with. If you say, as an artist, look what I did, this is amazing. What do you think? How do you think other people would see it? People like to have their opinion shared. Try it.
Hey, so Elizabeth said, how can you do that without coming off as self-absorbed?
I think the best thing, well, there's a very fine line, Elizabeth. The best thing you can do is asking people legitimate questions. Let me give you one that's bad, all right? When you walk up to someone and say, what do you think of my picture? Not so good, okay? Because it puts them in a situation where they're trying to be nice, okay? And you may not get a real answer. Now try differently. If you say the same thing, I've been really working at trying to get better at this. Is there something here you think I could do that would make it better? Now, the first question is fishing Elizabeth for a compliment. The second one, if presented appropriately, is really trying to get criticism. Not necessarily bad, but real. So I would suggest that the best way you can do it so you're not self-absorbed is to genuinely ask for input and then take it.
Okay, I have some input for the one question about like how I'm gonna get buried or whatever. I don't know if you've read about Seth Godin. Ever heard of him? I'm sure Rob has. But he just talks about just finding your tribe, like the people that are gonna follow you, because there's so many people that you will get buried. But if you can find the people that like cannot live without what you have to offer, then that's the way to go.
You know, we talk about passion. It's really very much about that. If you have passion for it, even the people who may not, go back to art for a second, they may not even agree or really like the art that you produce, but they will respect people who have passion for what they do and seek to do it better. And you will find your tribe, the people who want to see what you will do and support you in it. And Elizabeth, if you come off self-absorbed, try somebody else. I'm teasing.
Okay, and then someone said, oh, Mallory put this. Hey, Mallory. What is the hardest thing you have done since you graduated?
From a business standpoint, probably the hardest thing I ever did is, it's a little technical, but our company, we bought a shopping center. Now it was a big shopping center, and we bought it, and we had to refinance it, just like you refinance a home. But the problem with that was we were in a position where we'd be the first person in the entire country to ever do this kind of refinance. So we were working with Morgan Stanley out of New York, and they sent out a team to come and to work on it from their perspective. So there were about 12 people there. Well, there were 2 of us at the time working on this refinance. So they had their 12, and we had our 2, and they kept saying, who do we send this to? And we kept saying, well, just send it to me. It's okay. I'll distribute it to me, myself, and I. So the problem was we said yes to something, Mallory, that we had no idea how big of a deal it was. At the end, the documents were, no exaggeration, when you laid the documents on top of each other, they were 15 inches tall. And we had to produce those, okay, in about 8 weeks. It was very, very difficult to do. in hindsight, you'd never do it again. But it was really, really cool at the end because it was successful. But sometimes, I talked about that chaos. We had no idea what we were saying yes to until we said yes. And then after 8 weeks, I remember that I actually had a wife and family because I worked a lot of hours. So, what was the biggest company I have now or I have had? Mallory? Okay, biggest company, well, at one point we had about 120 employees, spread between a variety of companies. From a sales standpoint, we've done some interesting development. We built a shopping center. That was kind of cool. We also built the spring training facility for the Colorado Rockies and the Arizona Diamondbacks in Arizona. And I'm still part of a large commercial development. It's about 2 million square feet of development, office buildings, driving range, hotels, that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure if it's stressful, Jacob, but it is what it is. We do a lot of stuff still. From my little office in Montana. Philip, are you asking me a question? Would I consider myself rich according to the definitions that I gave? The reason, I would say yes, okay, but I would say for my reasoning has changed. I say that because when I first started, I was far more interested in building, well, we joke about it, building an empire, being a big company. That's what I really wanted to do, but I don't want to do it quite as much anymore because in that time period I realized that you do trade off a lot. You trade off a lot of time for family and so on, and that's just more important to me today. So I would rather skip projects and do less and spend more time with my my family. And I painted myself somewhat in a corner. I have an office in Arizona, an office in Utah, and an office in Hawaii. So as a couple people here know, I have to travel for work, and that's a downside. Anything else? Mallory, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah. Anything else, guys? Either just put it in the chat any question, or we'll call it good. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rob.
I have a question, actually.
Okay.
What is the best advice you could give to teens who want to do entrepreneurship right now?
Start off small. I don't mean that in a typical way, but when I say small, if you say that I want to sell X amount, right? We all have grandiose plans, but they have to grow from systems that have to be created. Sometimes we have a good product. Use our animator. He has a great product. But sometimes we only focus on the product, not what it takes to build it. So if we say that if I were to sell X amount of money and just break even, we often have goals that are too big. So I guess the best one I would say is figure out what your actual cost is. There's a class that I give on price theory. It's very interesting to do to try to figure out what something actually costs you to produce. And then once you know that, decide how many of those things will give you some sense of accomplishment, and measure your success by accomplishment, not by dollars. Because if you get accomplishment mannered, that means you're doing it the right way. Then you can grow and scale that to get more dollars. We just did we have a couple of examples with that. We're working on, we have some of these websites that we're working on. One of them is called findpianolessons.com. I have no desire to sell piano lessons, but we had this group that they all wanted to have some way to cooperatively find piano lessons and be piano teachers. And they were all these wives who graduated from college, and they were trying to do something while the baby was asleep or while the kids were at school. So it was a way to help them have more opportunities about selling more piano lessons. It doesn't make it's a really little company. It doesn't make a lot of money, but it feels pretty good because it helps people do something. We know we could make it bigger, but we accomplished the first part first, which is make it worthwhile.
Awesome. Okay, we did get a few more questions. Which would be better, a kind of company in your town or launch it on the web?
Pretty broad question. I like. Well, let me take a step back from that. I really like the web because we moved from a market of your own community to a much larger one. The problem with it is, and we talked about it earlier, is that it's so cluttered. It's very, very difficult to make it universally known. I mean, you're competing against people who are far bigger than you to get hits and views and impressions. It's a very difficult marketplace. But you got to combine those two because the web provides you, if you have a good service that people in your community like, using the web as a way for information, okay, as well as e-commerce, strengthens your position. Then you're able to do things in a bigger way if you're successful. So I would say you combine those two. It's why would somebody from a long way away want to buy from you unless your product is extremely unique? Where people in your town, you may be the only provider that exists.
One last question, and then we'll end it. Or maybe two. Okay. Last question. What is like one thing that you wish you could do as a teen? Like, knowing what you know now, what do you wish you did as a teen to either prepare you for business or, you know?
Talk to a lot more people. Talk to a lot more people. Now, I wasn't shy as a teen, but the reason I say that is because if you can learn to sort through information you get from places to find the nuggets of good, you can take things that are meaningful to you. Now, not everything you get from people, including from me, is good. Okay, but if you're able to sort through that and talk to more people about their perspectives, it helps you to define things, and they really can help you to avoid making mistakes, substantial ones. Give you an example. This What's Up Arizona that I created was a great idea. Our pricing was completely wrong, but what we did even worse than that was we sent it out to everybody and their mother. We grew really, really fast. We had cards all over the place. My job after I got the card together was to go to the high schools. The problem was we had no way to control it. I talked to a guy 6 months into it, and he said, you need to go to the ones who are going to be the most successful. So instead of having schools that sold a tremendous number of them, we had a lot of schools who sold a little bit. We worked our tails off because we had so many schools doing it. The 10 minutes with the guy I talked to would have showed us that we could have done things a lot differently and been a lot more successful. It wasn't a horrible thing, but his wisdom would have helped me be more successful. So talk to everybody. Ask them what they think. You don't have to share your idea. Talk to people who you think they don't have to be entrepreneurs, but or be deemed as necessarily successful. People who want to see you succeed are the ones you have to talk to.
Awesome. Thank you for coming, and I mean, what you shared was awesome, and this will be up on YouTube sometime in the near future. We gotta clip some things, anything that is cut out or choppy, and then we have to add some animations. So other than that, thanks for coming, and once again, thanks, Rob.
My pleasure, guys. Good luck.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.